Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our first webinar ever and the first webinar in our new summer webinar series, which is all about how to optimize your website. Today, we will be focused on optimizing your website menu. To kick it off, I'd like to start with a brief introduction and some housekeeping items. Your video will remain off and muted throughout the webinar, so you will be in listen-only mode. If you have any questions, you can type them directly into the chat. So as you think of questions, feel free to enter them into the chat, and we will be looking at those at the end of the webinar with a Q&A session. So if you think of anything as we are stepping through, please feel free to type them into the chat box and we will be sure to answer them. And the last note is that we are recording today's webinar. So if you have to drop off early or you want to re-review something later, you will have access to the recording to do so. And with that said, just a brief introduction of who I am. My name is Jessie Wilkie, and I am the marketing director here at Cairo Hosting. So why did we choose to start with the website menu and navigation for our summer webinar series? Well, it's a key part of the website. Anyone's website, menu and navigation are a huge component. A great menu and navigation can help convert web traffic to patients, but a poorly designed menu can turn people away. So here are 5 reasons why your website menu is important. The first is user experience. Your website menu can make or break a user's experience on your site. If the menu is cluttered or hard to navigate, you're going to have a higher bounce rate, meaning that people will come to your site and leave without staying on the site and exploring different pages, or making it further along on the conversion path. If your menu is designed well, you're going to notice improved stats around number of pages per visit, time on page, and other engagement metrics. And these stats are increasingly important to search engines today, whose algorithms focus on user engagement metrics. Your website menu is a great opportunity to provide a solid experience, and in doing so, to improve those user engagement metrics and to rank higher. Number 2, findability. Your website menu helps users find information on your website, whether it's your business hours, the services you provide, or a contact form or information. Making your website menu easy to navigate will help visitors find what they're looking for. The third point is the patient journey. Your menu can guide site visitors on a journey. They might enter your site looking to find physical relief for an auto injury and end up leaving your site a new patient after navigating your site to see if your practice is a good fit for them. Conversion. This is a big one, especially with today's theme of don't miss out on new patients. Your menu can also act as a path to conversion. If you include a call to action in your top level navigation, this means that anonymous web visitors can click on a link in your menu that prompts them to fill out a form and provide their information. And then they're no longer anonymous. You know who these website visitors are, and you are one step closer to converting them into a new patient. And last but not least, branding. Your website is a reflection of your brand and your practice. Your menu is no exception. Did you know that 75% of consumers admit to making judgments on a company's credibility based on the company's website design? So without further ado, we are going to go through 11 recommendations to optimize your website menu. We hope that you will be able to use some of these recommendations to help improve your user experience on your website and to improve conversion rates. So let's dive in. The first recommendation we have today is to focus on user experience. This is also the most important recommendation, and it should be the foundation for everything you do. Whenever you consider making a change to your website menu, take a minute and think about whether or not it will improve the user experience. If it's not going to improve the user experience, or it's going to make the user experience less enjoyable or less easy for a user to navigate your site, then we recommend not going with that approach. But if it's going to enhance the user experience, help them with findability, the enjoyment of just perusing your site, making it easier for them to navigate, any of these things are good. And as long as they are good experiences for the user, we recommend pursuing those avenues. So if you use this as your guiding principle for everything else you do, you should make good decisions when it comes to updating your website menu. And so keep the user experience in mind as we walk through the following 10 recommendations. So let's take a minute real quick and do a short thought experiment. I'd like you to think about a website menu. And when you think about the website menu, what comes to your mind? I'll give you a minute. What did you think of? Some of you might have thought about your own website menus. Others might have thought about a website that you recently visited. But chances are the majority of you thought about a standard menu with top-level horizontal navigation, which brings me to my next point. Be expected. Users have come to know website menus with standard navigations. The majority of those are top horizontal navigation. There are some vertical navigations that are creeping in, but people are accustomed to seeing a standard menu. And, you know, it's not the time to push the envelope or to reinvent the wheel. Neil Patel, who is a marketing expert, says it very well. Visitors expect to find horizontal navigation across the top or vertical navigation down the left side. Putting your navigation in standard places makes your site easier to use. That means a lower bounce rate, more pages per visit, and higher conversions. Be expected. Yes, marketing is about differentiation, but your navigation style isn't the place to do it. Your goal is to help people find your content, not show them a new way to get around a website. I couldn't have said it better myself. So with that in mind, give your website visitors what they're expecting. Don't create this menu or navigation that is new and they don't know how to interact with it, or it's hidden somewhere in the site, it's not in a standard place. Just go with the standard top level horizontal navigation, or if you're feeling a little bit more creative, you could experiment with the vertical navigation down the side, but I would definitely look at your website metrics and your bounce rate and pages per visit to see how that impacts your user experience. Point 3, keep it simple. So we recommend no more than 5 to 7 top-level categories on your website menu. So in this example here, you can see that there are 4 categories in the menu, plus the home page on the left. So these 4 categories: about us, how we help, location, contact us, the home page for the 5th one. And if you have a blog, then that could be your 6th top level category. We recommend no more than 7, because then it starts getting a little complicated and hard to navigate, and people may not know what to click on, and so they may navigate away from your site and go to another site. And with that said, a way to put more information into your menu without cluttering your top level menu is to make it deep, not wide. And what we mean by that is to use a drop-down or a mega drop-down. In this example here, you can see a drop-down was used to provide more information in subcategories below the main categories. We also recommend keeping these subcategories in your drop-downs short and sweet, no more than 8. If they get too long, it's going to be also very difficult for your users to navigate. It's going to provide a busy experience, which is not a good experience. So going back to user experience, always think about how your user will navigate your site. And users today are accustomed to navigating drop-down menus. So, be expected. A drop-down menu is a easy way for your website visitors to dig deeper without bombarding them with too much on your top level nav. Make it sticky. So a sticky menu is one that always shows up at the top of your website. In this example here, you can see that the page has been scrolled down, and so it's toward the footer. And so today, a lot of web pages have long scrolling content. It's very common in the design. But if your website menu is not sticky, then as people scroll down, it will disappear above the fold. And when this happens, they won't be able to access it without scrolling all the way back up, which makes for a terrible experience. If someone scrolls halfway down a long page and they don't have access to the top level menu, then they will not be able to navigate to another page, and they may just decide to go up to the browser and exit your website. So making your website menu sticky allows users to read as much as they want on a particular page and then navigate to another page. So that way you keep them on your site with the goal of getting them to convert down the road. Make it responsive. So in the past decade or so, we've seen the rise of mobile and tablet traffic, and that's only going to continue. So a big portion of website traffic today comes from people browsing on their phones or their iPads or their other mobile devices. And so making your website responsive is definitely a must-have and a no-brainer. And what that means, if you're not familiar, is just that as the website shrinks, so if you're looking at it on your laptop or desktop, and then the screen size shrinks down to like a phone or a tablet size, then the website needs to rearrange or stack to fit the new format and size constraints. And sometimes if a site's not responsive, you'll see it break. Like things will look strange, they will look odd, text will be over images, things will be cut off, the menu might stack in a weird way. So we recommend using a hamburger style menu, which in this example here at the top right of the screenshot, you can see these 3 stacked lines. That is the classic hamburger style, and that's where it gets its name. It looks like a burger, 2 buns, and the patty in between. So a hamburger menu is something that's expected from users today with a lot of experience on mobile and tablet traffic. They know that if they click on the hamburger menu, they will get an expanded menu. And as long as the menu is sticky, the hamburger menu will be ever present on mobile or tablet devices, and they can click on that and navigate to wherever else they want to on your site. And this is important, and it's an easy thing to do, just as long as you make sure you have mobile-friendly, responsive web design. But Did you know that according to Google, 61% of users are unlikely to return to a site on a mobile device if they had trouble accessing it? And 40% will visit a competitor's site instead after this happens. So you want to just make sure your site is mobile friendly and responsive so you don't lose patients to competitors. 7, make it easy to read. So I saw this site a few weeks ago. It was a great site. I love the content. I love the beautiful photography. But just one small area for improvement that I noticed was the website menu. And if you look up here in the top right, you can see there's actually a website menu there, but it's really hard to read. It fades into the background of this image. And so with that said, we recommend making your website menu easy to read. And one thing you can do is put a solid color behind the menu so it's always visible and readable no matter what the background is. And the other items are just to choose colors that are easy to read and also fonts that are easy to read. This one, the font is solid, the color is good. It's just the fact that the menu doesn't have a background to it, and so it fades into the background of the photograph. But that's a simple thing, because if you were a user on this site, you might be enjoying the beautiful picture of the sunset, but you might not know where to go next because you can't see the website menu. So just a small note to keep in mind. And yeah, just be sure you check all your pages and make sure your website menu shows up well. 8, add in a call to action. So a call to action is something that urges someone to do something, to provide information, to take an action. So a really common one, as you can see in this example here, is contact us. And contact us is a great call to action. It's kind of a catch-all. It could be anyone from a new patient to someone trying to sell you something. Why ever someone would want to reach out to you, they can clarify that in their message to you. So that's, a very common call to action. We recommend putting the call to action in your top level navigation and in your menu. So that way it's always there, especially if you have a sticky menu. It's ever present at the top of your screen. We recommend making it stand out from the other top level categories. Like in this example, you can see how the contact us stands out from about us, location, and how we help. It's blue, it looks like a button, it catches your eye. So with that said, we also think you should experiment with your call to action and see what works best for your crowd. For example, here's the call to action that was altered to be schedule appointment. So maybe you really, you just want to focus on new patients. And maybe you have a business goal to get 10 new patients this month. And so adjusting your call to action to meet your business goals or to help you reach those goals is a great idea and a best practice. And you might need to adjust the language a little bit, schedule appointment, book appointment. You can experiment with the verbiage, but you can also experiment with color in placement. So you can change it from a blue to an orange. We really recommend just trying new things and seeing how it performs. There is no right answer or one size fits all. So you will just need to try out a few different phrases, a few different colors, and just different things to see what works best for you and your website visitors. But a call to action is a key component of converting website visitors to patients. Consider a secondary menu. And what we mean by a secondary menu is a menu that sits next to or somewhere else close to your primary menu, but it isn't your primary menu. So in this example, you can see the secondary menu here is nested below the primary menu. Secondary menu is a great way to provide additional information without cluttering your primary menu or cramping the user experience. There's no law saying you have to have a secondary menu, but it is a cool option to explore if you want to provide more useful information. And the secondary menu that we just saw in that example does a great job of doing something else, which is point 10, put contact information front and center. Did you know that 51% of people think that thorough contact information is the most important element missing from many company sites? And 44% of website visitors will leave a company's website if there's no contact information or phone number. So yes, we often put our contact information on our contact us page or our location page, or maybe we have it in our footer, but they still have to navigate to get to that contact information. So by putting it front and center, you're making the user experience easier, which is always a good thing, as we discussed before. And so this example does a great job of putting the contact information front and center and makes it easy to find on any page by utilizing a secondary menu. And so this menu has the address of the practice, the hours, the phone number, and even an additional call to action to request an appointment. So this is a beautiful example of using a secondary menu to put your contact information front and center. And last but not least, and also very fitting to come at the end of the presentation, is to use your footer. The footer is also the last thing that users interact with on a website. It's the bottom of the website, but it's also an important part of the website. It's an important part of user experience, and it's also an extension of your top level navigation in your top menu. We like to think of your footer as a complement to your top menu. So, website footers are often overlooked, but they are a great tool if you use them right. So when people scroll down to your footer, it means they were either very engaged with whatever content they were looking at on a certain page and they made it all the way down to the footer, or maybe they were looking for something that they couldn't find above the fold and they might expect to find it in the footer. Whatever reason someone gets to your footer, you want to make sure you're making the most of it. And so we recommend, the standard things in your footer, which include your company address and phone number. People are used to seeing the address and phone number in the footer, so making sure that those are accessible in the footer is an obvious way to use your footer. The other thing that's very standard is links to your privacy policy, terms and conditions, and other docs. That is very common to have in the footer. So just make sure you have those standard elements so you can be expected. And that way, when they go, their expectations are met. Like they know that they will be able to find your address in the footer. Another thing that's becoming more expected, but is not 100% standard, is your social media accounts. Providing links to connect with you on social in the footer is a great place to do that. So we recommend including links to your social media accounts in your footer. And then finally, we recommend adding a little bit more information, not a complete sitemap, but not a minimalistic footer either, just providing some other key links and things that they can navigate to, whether it's additional resources or maybe important pages on your website that you didn't get to highlight in your top nav, but would like to highlight in your footer. So take a few minutes and review your footer after today's webinar and see if there's any room for improvement or things that you can add in your footer. And it doesn't take too long, and it could help increase your conversion rate and your page views per visit. So it's definitely an area to take a good look at. And with that said, here's a summary of our recommendations we went through today. The 11 recommendations, just to recap, were first and foremost, to focus on user experience. Second, be expected. Third, keep it simple. The fourth point was to make it deep, not wide. The fifth recommendation was to make it sticky. 6 was to make it responsive. 7 was to make it easy to read. 8 was to add in and experiment with call to actions. 9, consider a secondary menu. 10, put contact information front and center. And 11, use your footer. We hope that you can implement a few of these recommendations to help improve your website experience and convert anonymous website visitors to known contacts that eventually can become patients of your chiropractic practice. And with that said, we're going to open it up to questions. I saw a few questions come in during the webinar, so I will go ahead and get to those first. And if you think of a question while we're going through the Q&A, please feel free to enter it into the chat box. So the first question we have is, what about the logo at the top left of the website menu? Do you recommend linking that back to the homepage? I've seen that a lot, is what this person says. And yes, 100%. So oftentimes now on today's websites, you'll notice the logo or the name of a business at the top left. And that should always be a clickable link that will take you to a website's homepage. So if you're on another page and you click that logo or web company practice name on the top left, it should redirect you to the homepage. So great question. Yes, the best practice is to use that as a homepage link. And the other question that came in is, do you recommend putting your sitemap in the footer? No, we wouldn't recommend putting the whole sitemap in the footer. That was in vogue a while ago. They refer to those as fat footers. The opposite would be like a skinny footer, and that's where it's very minimalistic with just copyright and hardly any information. We kind of recommend a Goldilocks of footers. So we recommend providing a little extra navigation, but not the whole sitemap. And I will wait just a couple more seconds to see if any other questions come in. But those were great questions, so thank you. And yeah, it looks like those were the only questions today. And thank you for joining us for today's webinar. And we look forward to seeing you next time.